Good morning. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity, first of all, to make this presentation to you. The joys of technology allow me to be in two places simultaneously at the same time, and it would be a very useful trick, I suspect, to be able to do the same thing in my private life. I'm hoping that some part of this presentation will contribute to the discussion which is going to take place later on this morning in relation to the development of the access agenda generally across this university. What I would say really is that I want to preface everything that I am saying by the rather spectacular growth which has taken place in the development of the disability service over the last 2 years. And we have seen during that space of time an increase in the number of students with disabilities from not far over 100 to now in excess of 200. What we've also seen is a very significant increase in the complexity of the disabilities that are presenting to this office and their integration across the university. We have seen a very spectacular increase in the amount of funding being attracted to the university in Maynooth from some 290,000 2 years ago to almost 700,000 this year. So what I would say is that I believe that we're 2 years into a 5-year programme, and that at the end of that 5-year programme I believe that we could have the development of a service which would offer the opportunity to be a model of good practice, not only on a national level but also I believe on an international basis. What I would like to set out to you really quite briefly in the time that I have allotted to me is what I would perceive to be the strengths of the disability service, and then I think the challenges facing us as we go ahead with the development of that service. I referred previously to the increase in student numbers, and it has been very significant, and I think that is a testament to the development of the service here, because students are being attracted to the service, they're registering, they have the appropriate documentation, they're confident in the service that we are delivering, and I think that brings me to what I would perceive to be the very significant strength of this service, which are the staff of the Disability Office and indeed the Access Office itself. And from that point of view, the staff are motivated, highly qualified, very professional in their approach to the service, very motivated to secure the delivery of a better programme of supports for students. And I think the quality of the service is probably something that distinguishes us, I think, at a national level, and also the team approach to the development and the delivery of services. In particular, I would draw your attention to the potential for the learning support programme and our strength in relation to the development of assistive technology, because I think both of those aspects of our service have enormous mainstream applicability, and I think they offer in their developmental stages the opportunity not only to improve the learning experience of our students, but also quite critically the teaching experience of our staff. The other main strength, I think, of the Disability Office as it stands is the very strong strength we have in relation to the strategic development of the service, because what we are trying to do is to develop a service which is strategically sustainable, which is supported within the university, which externally offers the opportunity to assist other universities and colleges also to develop a very strong strength within their own services, to anticipate development so that we can protect the university and support our students and their learning experience here at this university. The challenges, in some way, I have to refer back to one of our strengths, which is an increase in student numbers, because that also is one of the challenges that we have. How can we support them? I think over the past number of years, the supports for students across the university were delivered on something of an ad hoc basis, and that is no longer a possibility in the context in which we now have, because there are so many students. Their disabilities can be extremely complex. So one of the challenges is, how are we going to manage the success of the Disability Office? One of the major, I think, challenges that we have facing us is, how are we going to develop the service within this university to a standard where it can be a national model of best practice? And that means that, first of all, one of the major areas that we have to concentrate on are improvements in policy development. And for me, that will mean that within the next 2 months that I will have for the university a national examinations policy. And after that, other areas could be disability awareness or staff support, risk assessment. But we really have to ensure that the practices that have developed are now grounded in very strong policy documents which are adopted at the highest level by the university. We also have to critically ensure that when we have identified standards of good policy, that the practice meets those standards. And so it will be inappropriate to grant students accommodations and then find out that on the most practical level that they're not being granted across the university. And that will require a very significant amount of diplomacy, working as a team across the university to make sure that students can be assured that what we have identified as being their requirements are actually being delivered on a day-to-day basis across the university. We will also have to improve our student supports, and that will mean, for example, in relation to students with specific learning difficulties, the possibility of having an education psychologist join us to make sure that we develop in the right area for those students. It also means, and one of my own, I suppose, particular issues is that I believe that the university needs to develop a mental health strategy. One of the big issues in relation to a model of best practice for me is that we have to ensure that we have a programme which starts at the very beginning and leads students right out to the end. And that will mean that we will have to identify pre-entry activities. And as I spoke to you before about the opportunities in learning support and assistive technology, there's a huge gap here to take the expertise developed within this university and share them with schools at primary level, at secondary level, at community development programmes, so that we can take this expertise and bring on students so that they can see that third level and participation at third level is an opportunity for them. At the very end, once you have the student supports at a very high level, you have to ensure that the other area is the development of a careers programme. And I think, as I said before in a presentation that I previously made, it is really important that the university uses its prestige and its considerable strength to ensure that students who, with disabilities, have traditionally found it very difficult to get work placements and appropriate employment, that we support them in that. One of the other areas in relation, of course, to the model of best practice is that we have to identify the gaps which currently exist in our provision and to try to determine what the most appropriate ways are to meet those gaps. The two most obvious ones to me is that currently the supports available through the Disability Office are not available to part-time students, and I also think there's a huge potential to share the expertise which we have developed within the Disability Office and to share it with staff with disabilities. And what a wonderful model it would be for our own students to have staff with disabilities working within the university. The biggest single challenge facing the development of the Disability Office is how to secure cultural change across the university. And that is going to have to be developed at the very highest level. I do not believe that it will occur organically, although there's very significant evidence that there is organic change occurring. And in that I would draw your attention to a number of developments, one being where students who previously would have used computers for the purpose of taking exams would have taken them within the Assistive Technology Centre. They're not doing that anymore. They're now taking it in a dedicated computer lab. That is an examinations venue supported by the Examinations Office, and critically the technical requirements are being provided by the Computer Services Department. And it is that concept of mainstreaming, identifying a need, which is I'm also now seeing the development of, where previously examination accommodations for students who were doing pre-entry assessments would again have been granted or provided by the departments on an ad hoc basis. Again, they're being brought into the mainstream, and this April, for the first time ever, the Disability Office will determine what the most appropriate examination accommodations are. The Examinations Office will provide the accommodations, and admissions will manage the process. So yes, organic change is occurring, but to secure cultural change, that means that at the very highest level within the university, it is my belief that a forum has to be developed where the voices of all the staff within the university, our students, the Disability Office, can come together to identify what the most appropriate policies can be developed by the university to secure a culture of inclusion. And that will mean that the disability proofing of all college services will have to take place. That the university in Maynooth is striking by the fact that it has set no targets for the inclusion of disabilities within this university. But I think not only does the university have to set targets, individual departments have to set targets. We have to start collecting data, we have to monitor the performance of faculties and offices across the university, and we have to ensure regularly that we hear the voices of everybody in this process, that we determine where we want to get over the next number of years, and that we monitor our progress as we go through this period of what I believe could be very significant change across the university. And finally, I would say that the challenge that I would see as the other major big one is how we can support staff and students in this process. It is absolutely clear to me that this university has been very, very successful including students with disabilities. What I would say is that some of the departments who have done wonderful work don't seem to have been rewarded for the efforts that they have made. And there's almost a sense that these students can continue to be absorbed, and I don't believe that that's the case. Academic departments, the academic advisor's office, the medical centre, counselling, the exams office, health and safety, the buildings office, they are all being significantly impacted as a result of our success in attracting and retaining these students. And so we have to decide, how can we effectively support these staff and students? How can we develop this forum for decision making? And how can we move forward as a university to ensure, as I said, that the fabulous policies that we develop are actually in effect the practices that we have developed on the ground? I really hope that what I've said to you will inform some of the discussion that will take place over the next couple of hours. I'm sorry that I can't be there. As I said at the beginning, one of the huge benefits of technology is that you can be in two places simultaneously. The other enormous benefit is when you're tired of listening to somebody, you can actually turn it off. Thanks very much for listening.